Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of The Mad Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. This week, there's a lot to talk about. I'll be talking about the ending of the season for BYU. I'm recording this before Utah State's round of 32 matchup, but I'm not thinking they're going to win this one. Just a hunch, but I'll talk about their season and how it was a resounding success. Then I'll also be talking about how the Jazz are doing in the tank off of the century, and then I'll talk about Real Salt Lake and the Utah Mammoth to wrap things up. So thank you all so much for being here. As always, like, comment, subscribe, update wherever it is, however you listen. You all know it helps out a ton, and the challenge to you all, as has been the case for a little bit here, share this with one person that you think will enjoy the program. That helps out a lot as well. So thank you all so much for everything you've done. You can find me on YouTube, The Mad Cave Podcast. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, The Mad Cave Podcast. And that's about it. So let's dive into things, and let's start with BYU and their season. So not the way they wanted the season to go by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of injuries, and that for a lot of fans is a cop-out, saying there's a lot of injuries. But if you just look at the injuries BYU suffered during the year, it happened to key contributors and one of their big three. And North Carolina also lost their best player, and they lost in the first round to Virginia Commonwealth. So when you look at like injuries and how they affect seasons, yeah, BYU's was affected in a major way as opposed to other schools. So people will say it's a cop-out, people will say it's an excuse, but it is a legitimate reason this season. It's not like, oh, it was only Dawson Baker or it was only bench or role players that were getting injured, the starters stayed healthy. No, Kibakita missed a couple of games here and there. Richie Saunders missed, the last part of the season. And Rob Wright and AJ Dybantsa were playing with nicks and bruises as well. And then Kennard Davis had to miss some time due to off-the-court stuff. So the team never really got a chance to be whole for more than like the first 4 games of the season. And in those first 4 games of the season, they looked really good. They looked like they could go to the Final Four. They really did. But then, those injuries happened and the season kind of fell apart. They finished the season in the Big 12 going 9-9. They were 7 games back of Arizona, and the overall record was 23-12. They lost to Texas. They never really had a chance. AJ Dybantsa was Superman in the game, 35 points. You can't really ask for more. Rob Wright also gave everything he had in that game. When you look at the box score, it doesn't tell the whole story. It never does. Rob Wright scored 14 points, 7 of 17 shooting, 0 for 4 from deep. Dybantsa was 1 for 7 from deep. And free throws, AJ was the only one who got to the line. He was 12 of 12. So he really did do everything within his power to try to will this team to a victory over Texas. And Texas is a Sweet 16 team. Looking at the season as a whole, saying it was a failure is really harsh. But when you're talking the talk, you have to walk the walk, which means you have to take care of your body. You have to play smart. You have to be aware of situations, and you also have to know that your season is going to be a grind unlike anything BYU basketball has seen before. And it was. Villanova, NCAA tournament team. UConn, definitely a tournament team. Wisconsin was. Miami was. Clemson was. And then when you get to the Big 12, Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas, Texas Tech, TCU, Central Florida, and BYU were all NCAA tournament teams. So this scheduling, while it was effective at getting AJ Dybantsa and the brand out there, it did no favors to the health of the team. And the strength and conditioning team wasn't prepared for this because they've never seen something like this before. Now, I am really harsh on strength and conditioning teams. I am. I feel like a lot of them across the board are too stilted and in the past when it comes to getting guys ready. They have gone away from just being the biggest guy in the room. They've gone away from that, having the most muscles and all of that stuff. I hate to say it, but Tom Brady's kind of right. You don't need to be the biggest, strongest dude. You just have to be the one that can survive a season. And so it's something you've heard me say before. It's a saying that one of my old coaches had, and I've heard on multiple different broadcasts, is at a certain level, the best ability is availability. And for BYU, they just didn't have it. They just didn't have it. And something that I've heard sports physiotherapists talk about, I used to work with a few in a professional setting. They say that coming up, kids aren't really coached or trained on how to run properly, which I found interesting because, you just run, right? I didn't know, unless you're on like in track and field, I didn't know there was a proper way to run, but there is. And so what happens with all of these ACL tears, all of these Achilles tears, is athletes are getting into positions to where it's inevitable. How they're running, how they're setting up to get hit, how they're sprinting up and down the court and pivoting and stopping and starting. They're not keeping their knees and ankles within the frame of their body, and that's why their tendons are exploding. And so that's another thing that, strength and conditioning, all that stuff needs to look at. And a lot of places just aren't. So that was a tangent into, sports physiotherapy, sports therapy. I dabbled in it a little bit. I thought I might want to go into it, but I don't want to look at athletes' feet all day. So that's why I didn't go into it. And seeing that sort of research and looking at it, and it makes sense. It's not like baseball with the elbow and the shoulder. You can't really rewrite how to throw, the mechanics of throwing a baseball. You can't really rewrite that. But with how these guys are getting hurt in football and basketball, they're not keeping their legs within their frames enough. And so when you walk outside of your frame, you are putting unneeded stress on your ligaments and tendons. And those don't heal on their own very well, if at all. And so it builds over time, little teeny tiny micro tears until the big one happens. And so that's what's happened. Now, there are obviously those occasions where you're diving for a loose ball and your knee collides and it bends in a weird way. Yeah, that happens. Or you land on a guy's foot. Yeah, that'll happen too, and that's not your fault. But it's just something I found interesting and I've been thinking on a lot when it comes to these athletes and how we're seeing a massive uptick in these injuries. And it's just food for thought. I'm not saying that's the magic bullet. There is no such thing as a magic bullet. There's no such thing. But it is something to look into and think about. But the season overall, it was interesting. It was up and down. It was frustrating. It was great to watch. AJ Dybantsa is definitely the best player. Now, after losing to Texas, he did say he needs to talk to his mom. He's going to be working out for a couple of weeks, and then he'll make his decision on if he's going to go back to college or not. Personally, I think he's just going to go pro. I mean, it's what he's been working on for his entire young life. For 15 years, he's been working basically from dawn to dusk and beyond to get to the NBA. He's also said he's not the most athletic guy in the world, so he's had to work a little bit extra harder than somebody who was more gifted than him. The NBA is right there. He's a guaranteed top 3 pick. Guaranteed top 3 pick. Maybe even guaranteed top 2. But with all of that being known, I just want you spelunkers to think on a couple of things here when it comes to deciding if you want to go pro this season or in the next couple. Scouts and general managers have circled this draft for the best, I would say, 4 to 5 years. They've circled this one because after this draft, if everybody that's expected to go pro goes pro, it's going to be weak drafts for the next 2 to 3 years in terms of surefire NBA talent. Obviously, that could change. Development happens rapidly, and so there could be a few guys who just develop into studs over the next couple of years and are surefire NBA talent. But what's interesting is these next 2 drafts are considered some of the weakest that we've seen in a long time after this one. So that's part of the calculus you need to look at. If you're Cam Boozer, if you're AJ Dybantsa, Darren Peterson, all of these guys who are going to be top 5 picks, it's part of the calculus. You look at that and you go, okay, my season didn't go the way I wanted it to. Darren Peterson was on and off the court. People are asking questions about his stick-to-itiveness, if he has the drive, if he really wants to play ball. Cam Boozer has basically proven, he's him. He's the guy. AJ Dybantsa has also proven that, but AJ Dybantsa didn't get past the first round. Even Kevin Durant was able to get past the first round in the NCAA tournament. He was out in the second round in his one-and-done year. AJ Dybantsa has already broken Kevin Durant records, and the reason I bring up KD is because that is who AJ Dybantsa models his game after. So what happens? Say Cam Boozer declares, Darren Peterson is obviously going to declare. Okay. If your goal is to be the number one overall pick in the NBA draft, maybe you stay an extra year. It doesn't have to be at BYU. I know, sorry BYU fans, but it doesn't have to be at BYU unless that's part of the contract with his NIL deal. But you come back one more year, you're all but guaranteed to be the top pick in that draft. The only thing that would stand in your way is an injury. That's a very interesting thing to look at because you would be, without a doubt, hands down, the best prospect in that draft over the next couple of years once this draft wraps up. AJ Dybantsa also has deals with Nike. He also has that huge NIL deal with BYU. There's a lot of money there, so he doesn't necessarily need the money turning pro like in the past, like players have had to do in the past. That's another thing to look at. Obviously, there's also the want of his mom for him to complete his degree. And he's a smart kid. He said, whatever mom decides is what I'm going to do. Smart kid. So you take all of that into account. Now, all of that being said, AJ Dybantsa is going pro. I will be shocked he does not go pro. But there is that chance, that 1% chance where he takes all of that in. He looks at everything calmly and not emotionally, coming down off of a season where he had to carry the corpse of the BYU basketball team to where it ended up. And then he looks at who's coming in to BYU. Bruce Branch III, 5-star, coming in. Dean Ruckert, one of the best prospects, I think, in Utah, coming in. Those are two very good players. He would also have, if he says he's coming back, he would have Rob Wright back as well. Xavier Stanton, his friend, coming up through Utah Prep, will also be healthy and will get more playing time. Yes, there won't be Richie Saunders or Dawson Baker. Maybe Dawson Baker can get a flyer from the NCAA, but I doubt it. He would also lose out on Kibakita. But there's guys coming in and potentially coming back to where BYU would be a very stacked team next year. That's also part of the calculus. So all of this to say it's not as easy as one and done, he's already gone. It's not that simple, but 99% sure he's turning pro, top 3 pick in the NBA draft, hands down. But there is that little tinkling in the back of your mind going, there could be something here. And Kevin Young is a great recruiter. We've seen it. Maybe he's got something for him. So just all of that for you to keep in the front and back of your minds as his decision will come after the NCAA tournament final. And that's also very smart by him. He's not going to try to hijack that moment. He's just saying, all right, we'll see. But awesome. Let's move on to Utah State. They did beat Villanova 86-76 in the first round of the NCAA tournament, proving what I've been saying all year, that Utah State is a very good team. Now, I'm recording this before their matchup with Arizona. I don't think Utah State's going to win that game, but they've got as good a chance as anybody else. Utah State has gone through a gauntlet themselves. Utah State has those guys that can elevate their game in big moments. MJ Collins, Mason Falslev, even Drake Allen to an extent. So these guys are not going to be afraid of Arizona. But Arizona is just that good. They really are. Seen them 3 or 4 times this season. They're just that good. And so I think Arizona is going to win this game, but Utah State is going to make it as interesting as they can. But, round of 32 exit better than what BYU did. And BYU had the top overall recruit in the country. Just saying. But this season, resounding success for Utah State yet again. We'll see if they're going to be able to keep their coach because there are some big openings in college basketball. There's Georgia Tech. That's a really tantalizing school. A lot of coaches always look at Georgia Tech because it's based in the heart of Atlanta, and that's a hotbed for just athletics, period. Football, basketball, doesn't matter. Just, you can get pretty much any athlete you want if you can recruit. So there is that one. There's a couple of other ACC schools that have opened up. Big 12 schools like Arizona State have opened up. That's a pretty good basketball school as well. And it's only, down the road from Utah State. It's a big road, but it's still down the road. So it'll be interesting to see if Utah State can keep their head coach after this season. I'm going to think not. The allure of the bigger paycheck and the bigger stage, I think, is just going to be too much. But as they've proven year over year, it doesn't matter who coaches at Utah State. They just win. So great season for the Aggies. I wouldn't be surprised to see either Mason Falslev or MJ Collins selected in the second round of the NBA draft. Wouldn't be shocked at all. They're both really good players. And if they don't, then they're going to get signed onto a team. They're not going to not be on an NBA roster come summer camp. So very impressed with Utah State this year. Very impressed. Now, to a team that impresses nobody, it's the Utah Jazz. And what I find hilarious and short-sighted is how everybody is starting to say, oh, Cody Williams isn't a bust anymore. Cody Williams is coming along. No, he's not. He's just getting more court time because other guys are injured, have been traded away, etc. His usage has gone up, which for every player in the NBA that can make an NBA roster and have an actual contract and not a 10-day, their stats are going to go up too when their usage goes up. That's just the nature of the beast. So Cody Williams is still a bust. Sorry, not sorry. He is. He is the reason, and I'll keep reminding everybody of this, that Carlos Boozer and company were brought in to be scouts for the Jazz, and the previous regime was fired. To a man. It was the Cody Williams pick. And before that, Taylor Hendricks. So don't wrap that turd up in a Snickers bar and tell me it's a chocolate bar. So that's something I wanted to bring up. Bryce Sensabaugh as well. He's not a bust. I've never said Bryce Sensabaugh was a bust. He's just going to be a bench guy. He's going to be instant offense a la Jordan Clarkson. That's not a bad person to model your game after. Jordan Clarkson's been in the NBA forever. So Bryce Sensabaugh has scored 41 points recently against Minnesota. But when you look at it, he doesn't play a lick of defense. Neither does anybody on this team outside of Walker Kessler, and he hasn't played all year. But he doesn't play like a defense, and he doesn't really do anything other than score. That's a bench player in the NBA. Or at least it should be for a team that wants to win. So when you look at the roster of the Jazz, and you see what's been going on, and you look at the stats, and you say, all right, this person is this good, that person is this good, I just want you to remember a few things. First, the NBA does not want the Jazz to win. They don't want the Jazz to go far in the playoffs. They don't want any of their small market teams to be good. They loathe the fact that Oklahoma City is as good as they are. They hate that. Looking at this roster, players that have a chance on a playoff caliber roster are obviously Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. Yes, those guys are playoff caliber players. They will show up night after night once the shenanigans from the front office are over. Keontae George has improved demonstrably this year. It's unfortunate he won't qualify for Most Improved Player of the Season due to games played, but he would win that award, I think, hands down. He's been a revelation this year. He's made the leap. So, yes, he would be as well. Isaiah Collier, too, would be on a playoff-type roster. Would he be a starter? I don't think so. He's a little bit undersized, and you can't have Keontae George and Isaiah Collier playing at the same time. The Jazz proved that with Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley. You can't do it. The NBA has guards that are too big for two undersized guards to be on the court at the same time in crunch time. The other team is just going to eat you alive. Ace Bailey, he as well should be on a playoff roster. Would he be a starter? Too early to tell. One season on a historically bad defensive team, you can't really make a distinction there. But he does lead the team in blocks per game with just under 1. And he's been improving every game that he's being used. So he would be as well. Other than that, though, maybe Yusuf Nurkic is a backup to Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler would be as well. He's Rudy Gobert with softer hands. So that, what I mean by that is he's able to catch a few passes and make some buckets, whereas Rudy Gobert's hands were made of stone. he couldn't catch a pass to save his life, and he still can't in Minnesota. Kyle Filipowski, maybe as a depth guy, like a 9th or 10th guy on the roster. Other than that, though, the rest of the and Bryce Sensabaugh, instant offense, already talked about him. Other than that, the rest of the roster, no. Kevin Love is going to be gone after this season. Loved what he did for the team, though. I didn't think he would be around for the entire season, and yet here we are. All of that to be said, the Jazz are close to playoffs. They are. But the same thing that they've needed for basically their entire history outside of 97-98 and 98-99, they need a superstar to get to the NBA Finals. They need to land one of those three guys I talked about in the previous segment. Will they? NBA's not going to allow it. They're not. It's not going to happen. The Jazz will pick 5th again this year. I almost guarantee you that. They're not going to move up in the lottery. The NBA is going to definitely prevent that from happening. They are. So if I'm the Jazz, what do? You can't do anything. You can't make a trade, really, for a superstar player because those guys don't become available, and if they do, they pretty much have full control over what they want to do. And so they're not going to come to Salt Lake City. So they're going to have to develop a superstar. Can they? I don't think so. They did with Donovan Mitchell, but that lasted all of, 4 or 5 years? And he said himself, it's exhausting trying to be that guy in this market. And for the most part, I agree. So this team, I think, is just doomed for average to below average, honestly, for their entire existence, so long as Adam Silver and the NBA are being run the way they're being run. There needs to be a sea change in the NBA, and it won't happen. The NBA is also dying. I don't know if you've noticed this. They are so desperate to go international because they are hemorrhaging fans in the U.S. because we see the BS. We see it. And this past draft lottery sealed the coffin for a lot of fans like yours truly. I can't root for the product anymore. It's garbage on the court. It's garbage off the court. And when one of the biggest voices that you have going for you is Stephen A. Smith, then you got nothing going for you. All right, let's move on to Real Salt Lake. They are also playing later today as I am recording this against San Diego FC, the soccer club that started up last season. This game is going to be in San Diego, so that's going to be a difficult one. But San Diego is not what they were last year. I understand that they're 3-1 this year. They have a +8 goal differential as opposed to Real Salt Lake's +2. But they don't have the scary player that they did last year. They don't have Chucky Lozano. So this is more winnable than you would think. But I still don't think Real Salt Lake's going to win. If they do win, I'll eat crow next week on next week's show. But I just don't think they're going to be able to do it. They've surprised me all season, though. It's a young team that they don't know that they're not supposed to be good. And that's a blessing. And they play Pablo Mastroeni's game very well. They play to what the system wants you to play, which is flipping the field, getting the ball out in front of your young, fast forwards, and then just let chaos reign. They're good at it. We'll see what happens. Diego Luna will not be at the U.S. men's team camp, so he will be with Real Salt Lake through this. MLS is calling it a season sprint before the World Cup. So he'll be with the team. How much playing time he gets, I don't know, because they're being smart with him. They're not rushing him back, and they're letting the young guys play meaningful minutes. So it's an interesting thing to look at with Real Salt Lake. They are sitting kind of pretty with 9 points in 4 games. I mean, the only way you can do better is getting 12. So will they win this game tonight? I honestly couldn't tell you. I really couldn't. They got a chance, but I just don't think so. All right, now let's move it along to the Utah Mammoth. They did lose to the Ducks 4-1, embarrassingly at home. They came out hair on fire. They were skating well on top of the Ducks the entire first period. They just couldn't get more than one goal. Lucas Dostal was having a great night. I'm not going to take anything away from him. He was the first star, which he should have been. He made 29 saves on 30 shots. That's incredible work. But the shots weren't all that great coming from Utah. It was a lot of one and done. They weren't getting pass-off pads. They weren't getting, loose change, as Steve Levy likes to say, or just garbage time in front of the net, just whacking away at it, trying to get a puck past, which always rattles a goalie in a way. So it was just a lot of one and done and then back the other way. And you're not going to win many games when you do it that way. Looking at the playoff picture for the Mammoth before their game against the LA Kings tonight, it's looking less comfortable than it has in the past. They are currently sitting at 78 points, which still puts them as the number one wild card. They've played 70 games as of me recording this. They are 5-3-2 in their last 10. But if you look at their performance in the last 5, they're 3-2. That's not great. 2-3. 2 losses, or 2 wins, 3 losses. There we go. That's 2 up and down for my liking. And if you look at the rest of the schedule here, things do lighten up a little bit, as opposed to what they've had in the past, which was like Minnesota, Pittsburgh, Dallas, Vegas, Anaheim, LA, Edmonton. After their games against LA and Edmonton, they have the Capitals at home. The Capitals are almost to the point of packing it in for the rest of the season. Then they travel to LA, where the Kings are terrible at home. Then they travel to Seattle for a crucial game. But after that, it's Vancouver, it's Edmonton without Leon Draisaitl. Then it's Nashville, who are on a heater. They are now currently sitting in the second wild card spot after being at the bottom of the standings for the majority of the season. Carolina at home, where I think at this point in the season, Carolina might be coasting a little bit just to get to the playoffs because they're locked in and ready to go. Then it's Calgary, Winnipeg, and St. Louis. 3 teams that are out of the playoffs and haven't had anything to play for a while. And Winnipeg and St. Louis are at home to wrap up the season. If you look at the road to home split, now home has not been good to Utah recently. They have lost their last, 1, 2, 3, 4 home games after beating Minnesota. Not great. They're going to have to turn that around, and fast. But when you look at the remaining schedule, counting today's game against the Kings, they have 8 games at home as opposed to 4 games on the road. I just had to double check my math there, but that's correct. That should equate to at least 12 more points and a 90-point season for the Mammoth, which will surpass last season's total. Last season's total, if you forgot, was 89 points, and they missed the playoffs. This year, the West is not as good as it was last year, and so they will be sitting at around 90 points. And with those home games, you would think you would win all your home games, right? You're not going to, but if they did, that'd be 16 points, and they would be a lock for the playoffs. And then they're playing against LA on the road, where LA at home is terrible. They've won like 11 games all season at home. You would think, right? 90 points is easy to get. They could bump their heads up against, 94, if you think. Especially against teams that are out of it down the stretch, and maybe some teams will be resting a little bit more, playing their backup goalkeepers, stuff like that. You would think. But recent results with the Mammoth, as my meltdown last week kind of attests to, show you that nothing's a lock. Now, the game against Minnesota was always going to be a loss. I thought the game against Dallas was going to be a loss, but Vitek Vanacek played his heart out, and the team responded. Against Anaheim, he also played his heart out, and the team did not respond, which is par for the course if you look at the totality of the season. Whenever Vanacek is in goal, Utah just lets off the gas for whatever reason. This team has a very good chance of making the playoffs. I still cannot bring myself to say they're a lock. I still can't do it, because I look at teams that are behind them. Nashville is on a heater. Yes, they're 5 points back. They are. And if you look at the Pacific Division, Anaheim, Edmonton, and Vegas are all sitting in the top 3 of the Pacific. The next closest after them is the Kings at 72 points. That's 4 points back of Vegas, who have fallen off completely. Sorry, Knights fans, but there's something wrong in Vegas. They don't start on time, and they get behind a lot. So I just can't bring myself to say that, yes, Utah is a lock for the playoffs. That's it for this episode. Thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you all next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave.